Hi everyone, and welcome along to today's Elsevier Live webinar. Today, Ashton Luxgrant is going to talk to us about using complete anatomy in dental education. And there will be some time for questions at the end, so please pop your questions into the Q&A, and either my colleague Karini will answer them during the session or Ashton will answer them towards the end. And a recording of this session will be sent out to all the registrants within the next week. So just before Ashton begins, for those of you on the webinar who are unfamiliar with complete anatomy, I would just like to start by giving you a quick introduction. So complete anatomy is the world's most advanced interactive anatomy platform. We believe our models are the most accurate and the most complete. And with over 17,000 structures, our human body is the most detailed. The accuracy and completeness of our structures is extremely important for us. We have advanced technology and features, including a beating heart, AR tools, muscle movement, cross-sections, and a growing range of microanatomy models. Very importantly, we also have unique content editing tools, allowing you to create your own content, to customize screens, and share them with students. We have over 1,500 clinical videos on the platform and a range of ready-made courses. Finally, we have a suite of tools specifically for educators, which we call Curriculum Manager. Our most recent developments on the platform include a newly designed skull, which has parts, surfaces, and landmarks for the teeth, and also improved anatomical accuracy of the blood and nerve supply to the teeth. We're also very excited to announce that later this year, we will release an all-new complete female model. Now, I would like to introduce Ashton Luxgrant. Ashton is a medical writer at 3D for Medical. Ashton has a master's in human anatomy from Edinburgh University, and her personal anatomical interest is sexual dimorphism of the skull. Her interests outside of anatomy are reading, cooking, and traveling. Today, Ashton will show us how complete anatomy can be used for dental education. Over to you, Ashton.
Thanks, Jane, and thanks everyone for coming in and looking at what we'll present today on dentistry and complete anatomy. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. You can see that I'm in the hub that we call of complete anatomy. So right off the bat, I'll go into my models here. And we'll zoom in to our teeth. So as Jane explained, we've updated the skull and now include a lot more features to help make the teeth more distinguishable. All 32 are represented. So we have our incisors, canines, premolars, molars. And with that, a lot of detail has gone into each one so that it should be individually identifiable. So if I hide my maxilla and mandible, or what I'll do instead actually is just hide everything else. So when looking at the teeth, you can see that each root looks different. So you should be able to tell whether a tooth is from the maxilla or the mandible based on the detail that's gone into the different roots as well as the cusps of the teeth. Going to just add back our skull now. So when we do click on the teeth, you'll see that on the left appears an info box, and this will give us written content that starts out with quick facts, quick information that might appear on a student's quiz, for example. And then from there, it goes into more detail, talking about key features and anatomical relations, as well as the development of the teeth, into their function, and at the very end, we list our references. If we come back up to this little toolbar here, you can see that this function of parts, surfaces, and landmarks appears, and this applies to the whole skeletal system. If I'm looking at this individual tooth right now, and I click on parts, it will list the different parts that I can view on that tooth. So if I just click it, you'll see that it isolated the tooth now, and I can go part, and with each part comes again written content with more information about it. However, if I want to see all of the parts painted onto the skeleton, I can go below here on the skeletal system and click this plus icon. And you'll see now that the whole skeleton has been painted with its parts. So with parts, we also highlight the different foramina on the skull. As you can see here, we have the mental foramina. So when I clicked that, again, I get my written content information with it. But what I really like about this function is it allows us to view different vasculature or nerves that are going through these openings. So if I turn on my nervous system, we can now see that we have this nerve, mental nerve, coming out through that foramen. I'm going to go ahead now and hide my teeth and hide the maxilla, just so I can get a better view into my mandible. And on the inside here now, you can see this inferior alveolar foramen and the nerve going into it. And you may know that when it goes in, it then transfers into this canal within the mandible and then comes out of the mental foramen. So if I then click on my mandible and I fade it, I can now view this nerve traveling through that canal. So I'll just go ahead and highlight it. And then now I can see the relationship of how it's traveling down the bone. And this goes for obviously other nerves that are all traveling throughout the skull here. But going back and adding my skeleton back, and I'll turn off the nervous system. In addition to this parts function, the next one, if we click the plus icon, is surfaces, which appear in orange. And then as well, we also have landmarks. And this will, for at least the teeth, focus mainly more on the cusps as well as the alveoli in the bone. But I'm going to go back down to our base skeleton, click on a tooth. So back into this info box. After parts, surfaces, and landmarks, we also at the very end have some video content. So when you click on a particular structure, any content that might deal with treatments or conditions that is related to that area will appear here. And you simply just click it, press play, and it will start playing a recorded video with animations and a voiceover. But if, for instance, this is too gross for you, you want more detail on the tooth, we do provide a microanatomy model, which you can see when I click the models icon here, it appears underneath as tooth. So I can go ahead and click that. And now I have our microanatomy tooth model, which you can see has a lot more detail into it. So if I were to zoom in on this model, for instance, you can see that we have the difference between the enamel striae, as well as the enamel prisms, the enamel spindles. If we want to, we can hide this section of the dental pulp. And now you can see the vasculature and innervation going on inside. As well as we also have a lot of detail on going into the periodontal ligaments here. You can always use the breadcrumb trail to view them as a whole, where they all will highlight. Or if you want to go into each different one, you can do that as well by clicking on each. Another useful tool I find when you're trying to use the models and teach with students is our import tool. So if I go to the toolbars on the right here, you'll see at the very bottom we have a camera. And this allows you to take a file from inside your computer and just upload it to the screen. So in this case, I have this scan of a tooth. I can place it right next to the model I'm using as a good comparison for students to view different versions, or if you wanted to add an animation, you could do that if it's just a short GIF to help correlate something more physiological, or any other kind of anatomical illustration, etc. So I'm going to go now back out. I'm back in the growth model. And I just want to highlight a different area of the app that might be useful. And that's our radiology section here that was introduced last summer. So if I click that, it's currently filtered to radiographs of the head and neck, all planes and all images. And you can see here that we have a dental panoramic radiograph of an adult, as well as a periapical radiograph of central incisors, as well as normal dental and periodontal anatomy. So if I was just to click one of these, you'll see that I have the radiograph that appears on the screen. I can move it around. I have this list of corresponding structures, and I have our gross model screen here next to it that I can still move around. I can still zoom in and zoom out with it. And if I go and I click on a pin, for instance, number 9, you'll see that the list takes me to the name of that structure, and it's also highlighted now on the model. And you can do this interchangeably. If you click on a different number, it changes on the scan as well as the model. Or if I click on something on the model, it will still tell me what it is, even if it's not pinned. So you can see here, I have the left incisor, and it's not pinned, but it still tells me. If it is pinned, it will still correspond to the pins. We can also turn off the pins altogether if you just want to look at the relationship between the two. And there's also written content that will give you a description of what you're looking at, as well as the imaging technique and how that is obtained. So that's basically the radiology in a nutshell. And hopefully these different kinds of tools can help you then teach your students a little bit more about dentistry. And that concludes my portion. So now we can talk about how you can contact us if you have further questions, and we can answer some questions.
That was really great. Thanks, Ashton, for a really informative presentation. And we'll now move to take some of the questions which have come in. First of all, I just want to emphasize that we have a recording of this presentation, which will go out within the next week. And also, if you're interested in learning more about the platform and library or institutional access, please contact my colleague Gosha, and her email address is on the screen. If you would like to sign up for more webinars and more teaching resources, please go to Elsevier Health Education Faculty Hub. And if you would like some content for your courses, please go to our inspection copy platform. And now for the questions. We've got one here, Ashton, does the radiology part of complete anatomy come as standard, or is it an added feature?
I do believe if you're an educator, it would be included. I'm not an expert on all the licensings, but I'm pretty sure it would be included.
Are there any other questions? Very shy at the moment. Please feel free to pop some questions into the Q&A if you'd like to. Okay, I've got another one here. Are there courses available on the app that are dedicated to dentistry teaching?
So at the moment, I don't believe there's a specific dentistry course. However, we do still have those videos that are applicable that you can watch. And if you wanted to make your own course, you could take those pre-made videos, add them yourself, make your own content, and create your own version.
Great, thank you for that, Ashton. Any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Okay, well, thank you everybody for dialing in. Oh, sorry, people are just being shy. Can any other specialized technique, for example, CBCT, be added to radiology?
That's a really great suggestion. At the moment, we're focusing on just getting normal anatomy for all regions of the body get put into the app. At the moment, we only have head and neck, thorax, and upper limb, and those usually are mostly comprised of MRIs, CTs, and X-rays. We also have some mammograms. But after we add all of that, we do want to expand it even more. So that's a really good suggestion that I'll definitely put forward to add in the future.
Are similar detailed facts available for the paranasal sinuses?
Right, so this summer, I believe, at the moment, the sinuses were removed, but they will be reintroduced with content. So that will be coming in just a few months.
And I've got a great one here. As a teacher, how can I integrate the lectures and images from complete anatomy into my classes?
Good question. So depends on how you want to teach it. You could either do live kind of teaching with the app, or you could create your own course that you're able to then share with students. It's a bit of a complex, long question. We have lots of resources though. But I will say for things like live teaching, the app's really useful if you're trying to walk through a lecture with students and you're able to share that with them in real time. However, if you want to create things such as quizzes or more of a lecture kind of scenario for students to go through on their own, that's when our curriculum manager tool is really useful in setting that up and sharing it with others.
Ashton, would you be able to maybe show that? Would you be able to demonstrate that?
Sure. Okay, so going back to the app now, and just close that. And just trying to get rid of a window here. Okay, so you'll see, for instance, curriculum manager right here. And this is the area that will allow you to create your own lectures and courses if you want. So for instance, you can see one I've made here in the past that's labeled as Ashton's Undergraduate Anatomy. And if I click that, you'll see that it gets broken down into different modules. So we start with a head and neck, and I have 2 lectures with module going down to lower limb, and you can add it as you wish. But basically, when I go in and I click one of these lectures, you'll see that I have 2 screens that I've added, and it simply will just have me walk through those screens. So I can view this one here, and then go to the next one, and so on. When you're done, it will take you back. And basically, as an educator, you can go through and customize this. I'll go ahead and show you one of our courses because it's probably a better example, more in depth of what it would look like for a student. So under our course tab here, you can see the courses I've made, as well as our pre-made courses that we do with other third-party distributors. And basically, if I was a student, I would click on a course, and I can see the content here. It also keeps track of how much you get through. So you can see here that I finished this lecture, but I only did 14% of this lecture. And you basically go through and walk yourself through the different lectures one by one. You can see these all are screens, but you can also add pre-made videos as well as quizzes if you wish to. And it just makes it more of a way you can track the progression of your students going through content rather than just presenting it all at once in a live lecture.
And Ashton, do you have postgraduate anatomy in the app as well, or is it only for undergraduates for now?
There's no differentiation within the app. It's all complete anatomy. We find that it helps a lot of first-year med students taking their first anatomy classes. The radiology was added to help facilitate maybe second-year students a bit more. But it's really versatile. You can really customize what you teach with it. If you want to keep it more simple for undergraduates, that's very easy to do. You don't have to go into all the depth that might be there within the written content, and you can still keep it quite simple. Our search tool is really great for just finding things real quick that you know exactly what you're looking for. So I think it's really applicable to all years of study.
Is there any histology in this?
So if you're an educator and you have access to courses, we do have a histology course in here. Right here, Histology of Human Organs, put together by Jeff Meyer. This is our kind of solution at the moment for having histology. It's basically a course where he's provided images and relates them to the gross model. But I will say having a distinct histology function is definitely something as med writers we would like to introduce into the app in the future.
And can the app mimic pathological conditions such as fractures, etc.?
So it's not distinct pathology. We do have some workarounds. If I go back to my model here and turn off, whoops. And you can see I have my skeletal system. If I go to my tools over to the right again, we do have some tools that allow us to cut through the model. We can add some slight fractures to the bones, as well as growth tools and bone spurs to help mimic a sort of pathology. It's not perfect, but it can kind of draw your eye to the location and help relate it to the scenario you're trying to teach. We also have this pain tool, for instance, that we can use to highlight an area. So it's not ideal, but it's our kind of workaround to help tie in more clinical scenarios to just the gross anatomy.
And does the program include brainstem slices?
We do have cross sections, essentially. If I go ahead and turn on my nervous system, and I'll just click on a vertebrae, you'll see that I have this tool here for cross sections. And these will go through the body and give you cuts. But I will say this July, with the update, we have redone the spine. So we now will have distinct differences going throughout the spinal cord, where you'll be able to see a cross section and have it be accurate at whatever level it will be at.
And does the app demonstrate muscle functions?
Yes. If we go ahead and I'll turn on my muscular system. And if I click on a muscle here, you'll see that we have, for muscles, this motion icon. And if I click on that, it will take me to an animation, but I can still move the model around however I want, click on different structures, and I can also control the muscle motion as I want and still view it. The written content also will tell you things like origin, insertion, action, but this helps you actually visualize it.
Thank you, Ashton. I think that's all the questions now. Could you just share that final slide again, please?
Yep.
So for anyone who is interested in institutional or library access to the platform, please drop an email to my colleague, Gusha. Your email address, again, is on the screen. And as I said, the recording of the week will recording of the talk will go out next week. Thank you very much, Ashton, for both the presentation and answering all those questions. And thank you for everyone who's dialed in today. And I hope you find it as interesting as I did. Thank you. Goodbye.